Okay, hey everybody, this is Ian O'Byrne. I'm taking a couple minutes with a good friend, Kathryn Kennedy. Kathryn, can you introduce yourself and tell us where you currently are, where you come from?
Sure. Again, my name's Kathryn Kennedy. I appreciate the time that we're taking here this morning, Ian. I am currently the director of the Michigan Virtual Learning Research Institute, based in Michigan, but my home is actually in the state of Maine, so I telecommute from the Northeast to Michigan for that work. And I'm also in transition, which I think is part of the conversation today, to being a full-time consultant. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So you live in Maine. I miss Maine. You telecommute. How long have you been telecommuting to Michigan, and what does that look like?
Ever since I started, it was part of my negotiation process. So when I went to Michigan, I started out as a senior researcher, and part of that negotiation process was that I wanted to be close to family, and my husband and I were based in Maine, so I definitely wanted to stay. And I think more and more companies and organizations, even universities now, are starting to really see the benefit of working with people who want to do more of that remote working.
That's I try to explain to students of mine, teacher educators, that you probably are going to have to prepare to teach clients to teach students that are not in front of you face to face. So up to now, I mean, you are currently still director of Michigan Virtual Learning, and you're transitioning over. What specifically is the change? So you're going to go into consulting and leave Michigan Virtual Learning. What are you going to do as a consultant? What does it mean to be a consultant?
Yeah, so the process started about 2 years ago with me just thinking, I definitely want to make the change. The change has been prompted by, I guess, what we were talking about a little bit before was just following my heart. I have additional passions to my passion for research in online and blended learning. My other passion is yoga and therapy work through yoga and the use of breath, mind, body, spirit, meditation, movement, and how it is important to really work through things in order to be better human beings. So that is my second passion. But like I said, in my transition, I'm still keeping hold of that consulting work in that online and blended learning research area as well.
So you want to pursue that other passion, but then still stay in the research and the teaching and hybrid blended in all of that world.
Yeah.
So why, you said this all started 2 years ago. What motivated this? Was there a specific incident? Was it a series of incidents? What brought this about?
Yeah, so a couple years ago, I would say 2014 or 2015, I started yoga teacher training, and I had been doing yoga since I was a child. My older sister, Mary, who's also a school teacher, introduced me to it because she's been teaching ever since I was younger. And so, yeah, since 7, I just had an affinity to yoga and movement and meditation. And so I decided couple years ago, I'm going to go ahead and do my training. So during that training, there were a number of learnings that came about based on the work I was doing. And it is very deep work that you do when you start to really, sit with yourself and realize, things need to change in order for me to be a better person. And I learned a lot about a past experience that I had. Like many of us, we all have some kind of trauma to work through. And through that work, through that trauma, there's a great book by Bessel van der Kolk. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. I would highly recommend anybody who's interested and works with children, especially, that this book really talks about how we keep the things that traumatize us in our own bodies. So he calls it the issues in our tissues. And so if we don't work through those pieces, and it really helps to work through those pieces both through the mind work as well as the body work, because they're there, they stay there. And so I started working through my own trauma, and just had so many learnings, so many teachings, and through those learnings and teachings, building a compassion towards the people who were in those situations, and really coming to a true understanding of who I was based on those experiences, but that those experiences were not going to define me moving forward. And it's interesting to see how those past experiences can really change the way that you interact with others. And it can be in a personal way, and it can be professionally, how you interact with others based on the hurt that has come before.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so did you, I mean, is it I am a small grasshopper, I try to be mindful. I meditate. I don't meditate as often as I should. My son, who is 7, just turned 8, is very interested in yoga. So I'm trying to do yoga videos online with him. And, in the process, one of the things that I feel like I'm learning as I meditate is I sort of like push pause and peel back the layers. And then after a while you say, okay, now that I have a little bit of like quiet, now you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. I have not done it to your extent. Did you all of a sudden sit there one day and you're sort of like, why is that? Like, do you interact and you hop on like web chats, or you email people, or you get into a conference, or you rush to put in a report, and all of a sudden you start asking questions about like, why am I doing this? Is that what happened? Like all of a sudden, like an awakening to a certain extent?
Yeah, there's certainly a bit of self-reflection, and you do it more and more, I think, as you get deeper and deeper into the work. And I love the way that you put that. That's actually one of the things that I talk about most when I teach yoga, is that the peeling back of layers that you do, because, since the day that we're born, we are given these expectations, whether it be from society, whether it be from the people around us. We have so many expectations that other people want out of us. And so peeling back those layers of expectations to really get at who we truly are as a human being, and truly who we are as a human being rather than a human doing, because I feel like we have this culture of busyness, and that there's like you get a gold star for how busy you are. And like how many breaths does it take to get back to that sense of human being rather than human doing? And how often do I catch myself in the midst of trying to get things done holding my breath? And I challenge anybody listening to this to just really like sit with that and see if you can be more mindful about that. Just in that practice is so important. But yeah, I feel like the peeling back of layers is a huge part of what yoga truly is. I know that a lot of people start at the place of physical, like being physical and having it be a physical workout. And that's a great entry point. But then the more and more you do it, and the more and more even that you bring in meditation and even mantra and chanting, because that helps to kind of activate other parts of the body, especially the central nervous system that's tied to the pineal and pituitary glands. That tends to tap into that intuition that we all have within us. But because we're so busy doing, we don't have time to really tap into our own inner teacher and knowing what's okay for us and what's not okay for us. And I guess that in a way was where I came to the point of saying, okay, I don't know if this path that I'm on right now, which at the time was a path towards more administrative work, was really my path. And I think that was one of the big epiphanies, was that I need to be doing something different. I want to make more space in my life for that other passion, and to bring these these huge benefits to other people because we have it within us. It's just that we have to, again, like you said, peel back those layers in order to get to who we are truly in ourselves.
One of the things I wanted to bring up is that we talked a little bit ahead of time. I'm hoping to do this again with you and talk about two things. One, is it possible to be a good person and be a professional? Like be an academic, be in higher ed, because higher ed and academia, for one, is not a culture of supportive, and scaffolding and all the stuff we like to talk about in education that doesn't really exist in higher ed. And so is it possible to be a good person and also have that professional life? Is it okay? How do you have that balance? But then the second is, one thing that you and we both write about and we research and we referenced it before is that digital side.
Yeah.
Like, is it possible to have that digital identity and be online and have that TikTok and the push of the buzz and the notifications and be mindful? Like, is it possible to have those? Do we need to have those? Or are we just automatically going to have, and kids are going to have ADHD and we're going to medicate and everything else? So, is this something we should actively be teaching to kids or to adults? And then how do we do that? But with this transition, so you're talking about having that feeling in your gut and saying, like, this is what I really want. You said that it was this long process about 2 years ago that you started with the class and you slowly moved, in a direction. And the thing to note here is that you are very successful. You were director. You started off as a researcher with the Institute. You're director. You said you were just going to continue down that path. It must have been hard at times to sort of like, okay, like, in the back of your gut, you feel it. And then that one day you're like, hey, everybody, we're going to have a meeting. What challenges or concerns, or opportunities do you feel getting into and going through that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's been, ever since I started, because I started out in academia and I felt a disconnect there with what I really wanted to be doing. So I shifted to nonprofit work at INACOL, and I found that, okay, I really want to be doing the research. So then I, became the researcher at Michigan Virtual Learning Research Institute. And then, through the process of needing to support the Research Institute in a manager type way, and a mentoring way to my colleagues, I love the mentoring piece, but I think the administrative work was taking me away from what I love to do, which is research and really working with the practitioners in the field to figure out what's not working. And if it's not working, what are we going to do about it? And shifting away, I don't think has been too hard, other than I feel a pang in my heart for moving away from the Research Institute. But in a way, I'm not really, because my boss, Joe, is like extremely amazing and is supportive and wants me to continue on. So I'll still be doing contracting work with them. So it's not that is going away. So I think that would have been my only reason for having those pangs. But the shift to contracting work has been a learning process, and I'm talking about learning curve like this.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know what I don't know, and so it has been, one of the great benefits of being connected with a lot of different people is that I have a lot of friends who have been consultants for a very long time. So I have tapped into a lot of their knowledge that they have built over the many years that they've been doing this. So, 3 in particular have been, 4 have been extremely helpful, including Bruce Friend at INACOL and Kathy Kavanaugh, who was my advisor as a doctoral student, and one of my friends and colleagues from grad school, who is Wendy Drexler, And then, yeah, it has been, and Keisha Ray as well. So everybody has been telling me, okay, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is what you need in terms of the different types of insurance, like professional liability insurance. And then also, because I was an academic, and because even as the director of Michigan Virtual Learning Research Institute, there's been a lot of work that I have done, mostly for free because of, service work. And so it's almost like a renegotiation of who I am in relation to the people that I know in the field. And that has been a hard part for me, because I think as a teacher, and like I'm a giving person, and especially as a yogi who, like, part of our work in the field is called seva, service. So it's like, and putting given that in mind, I've also had to think about, how is insurance going to work? How is retirement going to work? Because all of these things, in a full-time job, you have benefits, you don't have to worry about those types of things. And so it has brought up a lot of questions, starting an LLC, and, setting up a bank account specific for that LLC. And there has been a lot of learning. I can say that. Yeah.
And one of the things that really struck home for me is that mindset, like as an educator, and then as a researcher, as a higher ed, or this is the way you do things. It's that narrative you were talking about before. This is the way that you exist. And so the other challenge is, in someone that does work in the open, those of us that do work in open, it's like, open should be free and let a million wildflowers bloom. And it's sort of hard to say, my wife would often say, well, okay, well, you're going to go do this talk or this webinar, or show up and help this person out. When are you going to get paid? And it's like, you have things that you need to take care of. And so you're always doing stuff, and there's never any shortage to going out there doing stuff for people, and you feel good about it. You build that identity. Mm-hmm. But then there's that transition, because you are far wiser than I, so you've probably done this, but I'm not a business person. I didn't get my MBA. I don't know the beginning. So when I talk to people that are in business and they have that LLC and everything else, they have that business mindset, and, I didn't study marketing, and so I'm online searching and teaching myself marketing and building the website and all of that other stuff. And it's hard to, the nice thing in a way is you can use the internet and your personal learning network, professional learning network, to teach yourself and build it up. But you sort of have to, like, cleave off that other part of your identity and say, okay, now I do need to think about the bottom line. I need to think about time. Even this half an hour we're sitting here talking, it's like, all right, TikTok, there's other things I could be doing. So people that might be watching this and thinking, yeah, I want to do that. I'm thinking specifically of, there's multiple people, but I'm thinking of one of my students I had last semester. She is training to be a teacher. She's not in the classroom yet. She's coming from military, training to be like an elementary school teacher. Sat there in my class. She's building up a website, and she's thinking, you know what? I think I want to, and I think I can go out and be one of those experts online. I think, I can name 6 or 7, and you can as well, those people that are teachers. They have a website and a blog, they have a book or 2, and they are rock stars. I go to give a conference talk, and they're in the room before me, and it's like 3,000 people seated on the floor. And then I come in, and it's like, 20. So she's like, I want to be that person. I think I can be that person, but there's no path. There's those learning pathways. So given where you are now, what guidance do you have? Like, what's the first step, or is there a mindset you have, or is there a, one thing I learned is you don't do this? Like, any initial guidance as people are starting to think through that transition?
So a bit of advice at first is that, and it's part yogi in a way, but to sit with the discomfort of that transition, because I can tell you that before I made it public, there was a lot of sitting and thinking, am I ready for this? Am I ready for this? And it was just a soul searching time and really understanding like, yes, I am ready for this and let's do this. Like I'm ready to go. And I think there's that still that idea of, okay, are there going to be contracts coming in? And the funny part is as soon as I put out that email saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, transitioning, they started coming in. And then all of a sudden I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be staying at my current job for as long, but I will be. It's just that idea of getting ready to jump off the proverbial cliff and into the unknown of what consulting is. And that was one of the things, that I learned initially, was that it's a space of uncertainty at times, but at the same time, once you start, then it gets to the point where you're just like, I'm going to have to start saying no to things. And that's really hard too, I think, is learning how to say no when you are a yes person. So I'm a recovering yes person at this point. I can say that honestly. One of the other things too that I think is really important is tapping into your professional network. And if you don't have people that you know of who are consultants, which if you're in the education world, you probably do, but if you don't, never hesitate to reach out to, other people that you see, especially like the LinkedIn network is really helpful to kind of see, okay, who is already out there doing this kind of thing. If you have chance, checking in with people at conferences, from my own experience, everybody is so approachable when it comes to offering advice in this area. And it is a little scary at first, but if anybody is familiar with Brene Brown, it's like just going into the arena and saying, hey, I'm here and I'm ready to go. Like, let's do this. There is fear, but on the other side of fear, there's courage. And you already are ready for this. You already have what you need inside of you. So it's just a matter of going out there and being who you are and being a rock star and just doing it. Like, no hesitation. Again, sitting with that level of discomfort at first, but then really coming into who you truly are, if that is truly the path that you want to take.
Thank you. I appreciate the notes about sitting with the discomfort. It's not all going to be roses, and unicorns, but then also reaching out. And I agree. I've noticed it where I'll talk to colleagues and friends, a lot of people that you and I know, and we've worked with, that you sort of sit down and, you're at a conference and you're like, I want to talk to you about something, and it's like that thing that no one really wants to talk about. It's like a secret, especially in education, God forbid. So you talked about getting in touch with other people. How do people get in touch with you? Where do we find you online? What are these different identities that you have? So if somebody watches this and they're like, yeah, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you're welcome to come to my website. It's KathrynMKennedy.com. And that is has all of my contact information. And yeah, please never hesitate to reach out. I'm, ready to help in whichever way is needed.
So do you have different identities or different spaces online for the professional, the researcher, the scholar, and then the yogi and stuff like that? So if I'm a K-12 teacher and I'm saying I need, mindfulness training for my students or whatever, is there a different place we go, or is it the same spot?
I would go to the same spot. I'm in a bit of a transition in that regard in switching up my website for the yoga side of things. But that site right now, the KathrynMKennedy.com, will also have a link to the current yoga site, but that will be shifting soon. So
Sounds good. Kathryn, thank you for the time. Hopefully have you back to talk through this and many more things. I think we uncovered a couple stones and peeled back a couple layers. But I appreciate it. And with that, we'll close out.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.